Hello everyone, Bridget Casey here, and I'm so excited to be part of the Mint Gardeners Watercolor Wonders video hop. And the Mint Gardener is aka Sarah Simon. Here is a sneak peek at my project that I did today, which you could have seen on the first card as well. I'm also going to show you this stamp set that I used because I stamped with antique gold pigment ink, so the outline is very faint. So this is the project I am working on today. I am using my 24 pan watercolor set, as well as two different number 1 size brushes. The lovely Emery Casey was on the scene to help me, so my brushes had to change up as she likes to knock them on the floor. So I'm beginning here with my watercolors, and for the majority of this floral, I will use Cherry Blossom as well as Summer Afternoon. I am going to bring in some other colors as well as we work, but I'll let you know what those are as we bring them in. So I do want to mention I was fortunate to meet Sarah at NAMTA, otherwise known as Creativation, and I was also so blessed to work with her in our class in Altenew Academy, and it was such an amazing experience to get to know her and just feel her vibe. She is an amazing human being, and I have some advice that I got from her, or one of her bits of advice that she shares with folks about watercolor. And one of her things she shares is that you have to know the rules of watercolor before you break them. So I love that. Love that. I'm not a rule breaker in life, but in watercolor, I am a huge rule breaker. And what I mean by that is I am coloring petals here next to each other. I am working on them. And when your project is not heat embossed and has the wells to protect your paint, you really should not work on petals that are right close to each other. And here's Emery Casey. I told you she will make a few appearances today. She just wanted to say hello to everyone. So again, if you're not using heat embossing and you don't have those wells, it's smart to not work on petals that are right next to each other. But when I get in the watercolor zone, I pick a petal and off I go. I don't always pay attention that they're close to each other. Now, sometimes that leads to a big mess, and sometimes it dries really fast. So I did this a few weeks ago, and in Maine, it's been really warm. And so this dried really fast. So these were pretty much dry by the time I was working on them. So there's Emery count 3 if you haven't been counting yet. And the other part is, if you notice, I'm using a lot of pigment. So I'm doing the wet and dry. So I am taking wet pigment to dry watercolor cardstock. Now I've brought in shades of purple and I'm working on my lilacs. I'll use the shades of purple and I'll also add in a dash of the cherry blossom. I sound like we're cooking dinner here. I definitely will not be doing YouTube videos for cooking dinner. LOL. So I'll stick with watercolor and crafting. So as we work through this, just go through and add in your color. Now, there are some areas where I did add a little bit of water and let the paint kind of spread out. But I would say 96% of my project was the wet to dry. So I'm bringing that wet pigment to dry cardstock. I think that's one of the reasons that I was able to break that cardinal rule of watercolor: do not color petals next door to each other, and I was okay. So now I'm bringing in Fiery Sunset.
Now I'm starting with Warm and
So we're going to
Cozy.
use a combination of
that
Fiery Sunset,
onto
Cherry Blossom,
and then
we'll
I'm
add
coming
a little
in
Summer
with
Afternoon
some of the
as
Cherry
well.
Blossom and
So
adding that
that's the
down
thing is,
to the base of the
if you're going to
petals.
watercolor,
So you can
take some chances.
come in and you can mix. You'll see later.
Maybe you
start
stamp.
mixing the
I
Warm and
usually,
Cozy
when
and
I
a Fiery
stamp pieces
Sunset,
like
and then
this,
I come in
I
and
like
add
to have
some
a
Cherry
backup just
Blossom.
in case I
Feel
didn't
free
this day, which is
when
shocking
you're not
as
on a
I'm looking
deadline,
at it
of
now.
course,
course, I should have.
Or you have to produce a product for something.
So it's okay
feel free, pull some colors out of your
or
set,
maybe
and just have some fun and mix them together.
But you
of course, you know what
piece.
colors make brown. So if you don't want to make brown, you can avoid those colors.
Right?
But
so
have some fun, and I think that's the great thing is I found this color combination for myself a while ago, and I've been obsessed with it ever since.
You know,
I
guess that's not a one-way conversation, but
combo.
you guys get the drift of where I'm going with this.
So what you're seeing
sometimes
here is I'm really trying to define that center petal.
So sometimes it takes us time to come around. Sometimes you just need to add something. Maybe you need to add some splatter,
really kind of accentuated and make that
top
I really
liked this
really
piece.
Pop.
In the end, I was very happy with this piece. I love the bright colors.
Then we're going to go ahead and begin on this little flower here, and I've been getting the cherry blossom this time. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes I'll cover the petal.
As you saw,
for example,
there were some
with
emery
the
breaks
warm and
in
cozy,
there.
and then I'll bring in the cherry
There
blossom.
were a couple
Other
photos
times
to a
I start
friend
with the cherry blossom.
saying, "Hey,
I'll bring it
what
up
do
a
you
little
think
bit,
of
and
the
then
direction?
I will add the warm and
I'm
cozy
feeling
or the
this
fiery
vibe. Are
sunset
you
to
feeling
it.
this vibe?"
So honestly, going back and
that's the other
forth,
great thing is
when
have a
I
crafty friend
watercolor,
that you can send a picture to when you're like, okay, am I onto something
is
here?
fabulous, right?
It's also good to have those crafty friends when you're like, I am so not onto something here. Please help me. What do I do so that I love this
and so
piece?
For me, watercolor is that disconnect.
Lots of kind of watercolor advice. And honestly,
this is downtime
when talking about pieces, it really could apply to your card projects as well, right?
That means that when I watercolor,
there
again,
are
I
those
may not follow all those rules
and then there
that
are
are
those
kind of
others
set
that
out.
Take
but
some
it
time.
works for me,
and I have a dear
space.
friend
and I
who
think
made
that's
this
the moral
gorgeous
of the story
card,
is finding
and
what works
she
for you
never
in your
loved
space.
it. But she sent
and again,
it to me,
that's shades of purple,
and
I'm just
stunning.
adding some definition
and so it has
to
a beautiful
both
home
of my
in my home,
lilacs,
and I'm
just
so grateful
adding
that
a little
I got
bit
that card.
in the
It's
circles so that you can see.
So
some
you
of
saw
the
me there
circles
working on the
really clearly.
lilacs, and
I
all
like
I
that
was
the
doing
others
was
are a
adding
little bit
in
out of
light
focus,
of the purple color.
and
Then I went
beautiful.
in and I added
So
some
I'm gonna
definition
finish
and
what
some
I started
detail
up
with
here.
darker.
So I am jumping around
So
a
I
bit
love how the
now.
lilacs came
I
out.
just kind of didn't
So
do that.
now
in the
I'm
beginning.
jumping around.
I don't always do
now
that with
I'm
flowers,
following
though,
that
but,
cardinal rule of
again,
watercolor.
it's what works
I'm not
for
working
you
on
in
those
your
petals right
space.
next to each other.
And
of course, I'm
being
going
in
to break
different
it again.
environments, watercolor
So we go back and
dries
forth
at
in this
different
video.
paces,
we're
so
following
you
the
just have to
watercolor
know
advice,
what
and
works
then
for
we're
you
not doing
in
it so
your
much.
space.
We're kind of
and
making
then
up our
you
own
can
rules
kind of
there.
go forward.
So again,
it's like,
I've got the
Sarah had said,
cherry blossom,
know the rules
I've got
of
the
watercolor,
fiery
and then you can
sunset,
break
and I've
them.
got the
And I
summer
think that was one of the
afternoon.
best
That
things
is
I
right now
heard, and I'm like, I could do that. I
my
can
original
break
plan
watercolor
here.
rules. I'm good at
And
that.
I wish I
So,
stuck
I
with
really
it. Now
enjoy
watching
that,
this in editing,
rule
I
that
wish
I learned
I
from
stuck
Sarah.
with this plan.
So looking
Because
at this
I love
flower,
these
I wish I had
petals,
not added
and
the
I
cherry
have
blossom.
since
It looks so
colored
pretty on screen.
projects with just
But
these two
as I
colors,
was going,
the
I did
fiery
add the cherry
sunset and
blossom,
the
and I
summer
still think
afternoon.
it's beautiful. But
And
looking at it
love
here,
it.
I'm like,
it is such a
why did I ever
combo.
add that cherry
And
blossom?
You can make
It's so
it so
pretty.
soft and
So
so
I definitely
beautiful.
want to do
So I hope
some
you'll try this
florals
combo
with
out.
just the warm
I
and
did end
cozy
up adding
and
in
the
a little
fiery
bit of
sunset.
cherry blossom.
So very,
but
very
I think that's
beautiful.
okay.
But I
So
think
the
the key
reason
here for
I
me
added
was
the cherry
to
blossom
ensure
was
that I
felt
used this
it
one
added
grouping of
something
colors,
and
right?
made it feel
So I
cohesive.
didn't necessarily have
It
to use the cherry
also
blossom. I
really
could have left it
easily
off
gives me those
on
shadows,
this flower.
that
But I
darkness,
do
that
want to bring in
definition I
that
want.
fiery sunset and
remember,
that warm and
we don't
cozy
have
because it's going
in
to
this
connect
piece,
my piece.
essentially.
It's going to make it
we
look
have the lines
cohesive.
in the beginning,
And so you
right?
want to
you
repeat
can see them
some
there.
of the colors
That's what I'm working
so that
with.
it doesn't
but for
look
most
like
of our
you
petals
just randomly
and
picked
the
every color that was
and
in the box
stems,
to use.
some of the leaves you
and there
can
are some
see,
instances,
the
right, that we
lines
do
in there.
watercolor and we
But
create,
for the rest of it,
rainbow
you
backgrounds,
really don't.
and that's beautiful
So
and that's
you
gorgeous,
have
and that's
to
every color of the
instruct
rainbow,
the viewer's
literally,
eye
that we're including in
create
there.
the petal.
But
Or you have to
overall, when I do a
create the effect
piece
of
like
the petal.
this in
So
particular,
that's what's really
I want
important.
to
And I
have
felt
it
that
look
the
like
cherry
it
blossom
goes together.
really
I
helped
want
give
the
me that
flowers
depth
to
and
look like
definition
they belong
beautifully.
together.
Now I could
another
have built
thing
it
you
up
can
again
do
with that fiery
is
sunset
you can
and
pick
the summer
one color,
afternoon.
say
I
from the
could
top
have
flower
gotten
that
there. It
I
would have
did. So I
taken,
could
I
pick
think, a
the
little
fiery
bit
sunset,
longer,
and I could
because
put
of
another
the
color
closeness
with
of
it.
the
So
tones.
look at my color
But
wheel
I'm okay with
and
that
see
with
what
watercolor,
other colors
right?
are going
so
to look
watercolor,
beautiful with that
I could
color
sit for hours
combination.
and just
But
watercolor.
overall, I am happy.
This,
I
out
like
of
that the
crafting,
cherry blossom
is
kind of gave
my
it a
time.
hint,
This
but
is
it
the
didn't
time
take
that I work
over.
on
Where my
stuff
other
for
floral, the cherry blossom is
even
pretty
if it's
prominent.
A project for a
so
deadline,
I like that on this flower,
theme,
that really the oranges and yellows steal the day of the
so
flower.
Soothing
so there is some of that beautiful kind of red
I also
tone,
get this with ink blending,
but it's not like the pinky tone that I had in the top.
I just
so
don't
for
know
me, it was different enough
and I'm just
that I was
focused on my
happy.
piece.
And of course,
so
you're going
as always
to
with watercolor,
and fuddle
I don't know if you do this
over
as well.
the watercolor. That just goes with the territory. As you're going, you look at these petals, you're like,
adding
I
color
just want
here
this.
until
I want this, and
good.
I envisioned
I
this petal to look like
as well.
this.
I don't know if you guys do, but
you know, I was
so you'll see me go
talking
back
with someone,
and
I said,
why
is it
and
you always get that one perfect petal that you love, and then you can't duplicate it. So there's always that one petal in any piece that I create that I'm like, why can't my whole piece look like this beautiful one petal here?
And you really don't want
I do try to get to
all of your
where I'm at with that one petal. I want to have that one petal be that beautiful petal that I love so much. I want it to be on every petal. So again, I go back and I work it. And I did use the cold press watercolor paper. Not always my first choice. Usually I'm a hot press kind of gal. I love the smoothness of it.
That's at least my advice for watercolor.
But the cold press takes a little bit more water. Not that I used a lot of water here today, but I did, as you can see, I worked the petals, meaning I went back and forth and added the detail. Because I don't have those lines. I'm losing those lines, right? Because as I'm watercoloring, I'm covering up those lines. So really, in this job, in this piece, it's my job to tell you where the lines are and to have your eye understand where those lines are.
It takes a little bit
so
longer,
that's why it was
important,
since I don't have those lines, for me to make sure those lines were very clear. And that requires going back and forth over the piece, at least for me as a watercolorist.
Basically instructing
so again, still continuing. Now we're going to do the centers of the flowers, and I started doing the fiery sunset in the center.
And looking at it now,
I kind of didn't like it, so I moved on
but
back
it didn't
to my
really
petals.
Work out for me.
And
so
I brought out my fall harvest, and I really liked that color in the center of the beautiful peonies. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that in there, and I love how that worked together.
And then to add,
and you may feel like it's getting a little lost in there. I like it personally, but I am going to add in some of the delectable delights to define some of
my stamens. Please don't get me on flower terminology.
I'm not good at my flower
I might be right, I might be wrong. So
I'm adding those into the center
was never
of
my
the flower
strong suit.
so that
I was
you
more
can
of a
see
math
that
gal.
definition. Because again,
in English,
I have to tell
and
your
English
eye
kind of
what
my
it's
jam,
going to see
so,
because I'm
science
covering
was
up
never
those
my jam,
lines.
but,
So I have to make sure
thank goodness
that
there's so many wonderful people that science
outlined
was their jam.
and looks like
so
it's
here we go. We're
to,
just I'm picking and choosing
the
pieces. There's a little petal over there
and
that I'm working
honestly
on.
If you cover up and you don't
it's really
accentuate that a petal has a fold, it's not the worst thing. It really
isn't. Piece, although it looks like I have a lot
some
left.
Artistic
but
license.
Now we're moving over.
So here
to
I went ahead and
greens.
I used one of my favorite greens out of the 24 pan set. And if I hadn't mentioned it, I don't recall if I mentioned it, but I am using green meadows.
Then I started
using
it
as a green.
And
I think it's such
used
a
way too much of it, and it was so dark, and it ate up my
it's one of my favorite greens.
And then I learned.
And again, I am using a 24 pan set
to a point
that
where I was
honestly
happy with it. And
will always
that's what matters, my friends.
Go back to always be my favorite. I love the watercolor tubes.
Do it until
they are
you
fabulous.
Proud.
They are amazing.
Because if you are proud, that's all that matters. Is that you are proud
I love
of your piece.
the
and as you get
I just
proud,
grab my 24 pan set and go.
Those skills,
and I'm good to go.
Pieces,
I'm happy as a clam.
You're gonna
I
have
have
more,
my 24
right?
colors,
improve,
and I'm so happy. And
so that's the other thing that I noticed, Sarah.
I struggled when I opened the 24 pan set.
Practice.
I remember I used the 36 pan set that we have for so long, and the reason was because it said artists and watercolors in front of the 24 pan set.
We're never
going. I'm not an artist. I'm not a watercolorist,
right?
And so one day I finally opened it and I played with them, and I've never gone back. I just love this.
Always remember,
this set will always be so near and dear to my heart.
So then we're going to come in and
but I really do love the
we're going over to this leaf. I thought we were going to work on
the watercolor tubes.
So we're going over
beautiful
to this
here
leaf behind
as well.
There, and I got a little water out of control.
You know, you can mix up a really pretty orange tone with the quinacridone magenta,
but
and
at this point in the piece,
deep,
right, where if you're making a card, you see it there. I'm trying to clean it up with my clean water. It's where you drop the obsidian pad, you know, on your piece, or you drop watercolor where you don't want it.
Make the yellow a little bit darker.
Make sure you keep paper towels by you as well.
The flower centers, so there's a way to work it. And then
I
would use the olive green for my greens here,
there.
And the purple I would mix the French ultramarine and
highlights
the
to the little
magenta
stem and
to make my
now we're going to go
tones.
ahead and
so that would give you everything you need to create this piece. Oh, and the browns, of course, we all know how to create brown. We usually create brown on accident, right? So yeah, so we create brown.
I am
but
so happy
this
with this project.
Is my final petal here that I'm coloring.
Amazing.
I hope you've enjoyed watching the watercolor today. I really enjoyed this piece. This is one of my favorite pieces overall that I've made.
So here's another.
This has been as
picture,
relaxing
and this
and zen
is
for
so
you as
true.
it was
I go
for
to
me
nature
in
to be
creating it.
healed and
So coming up here, we have the information on the giveaways.
Kind of
if you follow the giveaways on the hop, make sure to leave comments and you have a chance to win.
And of course,
thank you so much for joining Emery and I today. We are so glad you were able to stop by and share a little crafty time with us today. Until next time, my friends, happy crafting.
And thank you so much, my dear friends, for joining us today. Can't wait to see you next time in the next video. Until then, happy crafting, my friends.